Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. I am super excited to bring you a fish room tour of award-winning aquascaper Melanie Holmes' so many cool aquariums. If you want to see even more of her fish room, check her Instagram out. I will put it down in the description below. Hope you enjoy the video.
Okay. Hi, I'm Melanie. So this is my Fluval Life Contest aquascaping tank from the last Aquashella in Chicago from the Fluval Aquascaping Contest. I was second place and winner's choice in the competition, and I was fortunate enough to be able to bring it home. But on the way home, it kind of didn't travel so well. Hardscape kind of fell apart. Substrate shifted all forward. I thought I could just kind of tweak it and repair it, but ended up having to completely take it apart, scrap it all, take it out, start over. But I was able to really recreate it pretty much identical to what it was at the competition. Finally restored it to what it was supposed to look like, put the background on, everything's back in place, and I am very happy with how it turned out. And it's finally to showing its beauty it's supposed to be. Put some congos in it this time. At the competition we had pearl gouramis in it, but I think the congos really do it justice. I think they're beautiful in that setup. They just utilize the structure, and it kind of brings that African biotope inspired scape really to life. So my other tanks mostly right now have actually a light background. That's what I typically have. But in this one, for some reason, I really like that black background. I think with the val in it against the dark wood, I just envisioned a black background in this tank, and I stuck with it despite maybe some criticism on it initially. I think it really paid off. I think it really makes the scape just really come to life. It just looks so deep and so intense, and I think it really brings out the colors in that one. So it really just depends on the scape, I would say. Not all tanks look great with a light background, but I think in this one it works really good to use the black background. And I actually had it without the background on, so it kind of had like that white, you know, curtain behind it, and I also like it better with the dark background. So on this tank, I do not run CO2 despite having this CO2 canister down here. I thought initially I would want to, just to kind of help the plants out, but the val really doesn't need it, and it's doing really well. And it was kind of an experiment because I wanted to see how the fish or the tank responds to my blackwater botanical method with CO2, and it's not really the greatest combination. Fish didn't do well, they weren't happy. I imagine it dropped the pH pretty, you know, low and too fast, so I cut that off. So it's just straight water, no CO2. I have a Fluval Aquasky on there, which I think brings the color from the congos out just insanely beautiful. In this tank, despite all my other tanks, I would say half RO tab, just because of the size of the tank. My other tanks are all RO water, but this, due to size, I do about half and half. So fairly easy to maintain. It's still a little bit in the beginning phases, so right now it requires a little bit more maintenance as far as cleanup, water changes, but typically once the blackwater tanks or botanical style tanks are established, they are so easy to maintain, in my opinion, that it really doesn't require that much. But this one is still a little bit in the beginning phase where it requires just a tad more. And then I have the Fluval canister that came with it in the competition, which has been working out great. The flow is not too strong for the congos or for the scape. That's always my issue with all my leaf litter and the substrate. It's too much flow, so I usually have to come up and with some kind of creative DIY concoction, but it works out pretty well in this case. So and then I just have a heater on it for them, and pretty basic, like nothing fancy, no crazy equipment, but it seems to be a good mix right now. So this one was a tank I scaped for the Oase Aquashella booth, also for Chicago actually. This one was just for display in the booth, and I was able to pre-scape it at home. So I was able to work on it before I brought it up. I took my time, laid out the scape. I knew kind of what I was going for. I wanted this, again, just botanical, blackwater scape, Asian inspired, and this beautiful big bookshelf style scape kind of brought this long layout to mind. And I just started attaching. I can't even tell you how many pieces of wood there's in it. I started gluing, but at the end it actually got so entangled that I had to use some pond foam at the bottom because I could not get my hand down in it anymore to glue and attach the branches to one another. So at the very bottom in here there's pond foam to hold it together, and then the upper pieces are all glued together. A lot of people ask me, oh, is that one piece, or how many pieces you're using? It's literally sometimes up to 100 pieces probably, because some of these could be individual twigs that I just tuck in and add and add and add and add until I get the shape that I want. And then I start layering botanicals and leaf litter and seed pods, and until I just get the shape and the layers that I like. So I have gouramis, and then my beautiful school of the Asian rummy nose tetras, and they are doing really good, and I'm lucky enough to have males and females, which I think is very special, and they actually came from you, so I'm very happy with them. I'm hoping that maybe they breed for me sometimes, but we'll see. And then I have 3 little hovering sea loaches in there. They're not out very often, but they are in there. Very good combination right now. I would like to get actually some more of the rummy nose. I think they would look good to have a bigger school in there. My prized possession, my samurai gouramis. I think these guys kind of triggered my whole blackwater obsession. I've got my first pair of samurais at one of the trade shows in Dallas. Brought them back with me, and that literally what started everything. I absolutely adore them. I love wild type gouramis, and especially wild type gouramis and wild type like licorice gouramis in the bettas, but these guys are absolutely beautiful. The females are stunning when they're showing off and when they're in breeding mode. I've redone this scape a couple of times, but really happy with the way it is right now. They have lots of little nooks and crannies to hide in. They're really fun to watch because at night when the lights go off, they'll really tuck themselves in between the branches and the leaves and to look like leaves, and it just kind of hang out there during the night. And again, just a lot of leaf litter, a lot of roots to make it look like this root structure that's just kind of fallen in the creek, and a little bit of green stuff, and I think they're very happy in there. So they've male actually held a couple of times. They're mouth brooders, and so I've seen the male. He was holding a couple of times, but had not any eggs hatch at this point. But it's a new project. Just started setting that up. It's also a little collaboration with Aquascape Guide. We're kind of working on how life plants do in a blackwater setup, which I've, tucking them in here and there, but in the initial phase, how they adjust. So they struggle initially. So we're kind of working on a little educational thing there, but really like this thing. This is actually one of my favorite woods. I know people have issues with it at times, but I've not had any issues. I love spiderwood. Not spiderwood, I'm sorry. It's dragonwood. I love dragonwood. I think it's beautiful. It has a beautiful texture. It has a nice color. The tannins are great. It's one of my favorites. So the little canister filter, the Oasis Thermo, which with the built-in heater, which is always great, especially in those blackwater tanks, because then I don't have. Because the thing is with my blackwater tanks, once they're set up, I don't really do a whole lot with it. Like I do small water changes, but I don't put my hands in it a lot. I kind of let the ecosystem be. So I love having the heaters in the in the canisters, it just helps maintain that whole ecosystem a lot better. And then on this one, actually, a little interesting thing, I'm kind of pushing to go to smaller and smaller filter. I don't know if you can see how tiny that canister filter is that I have on there on the back. It's probably one of the smallest canister filters because I really feel like this is such a well-established little ecosystem. It could probably be without a filter at this point. There's so much like microorganisms living in the substrate and in the leaf litter, and there's, I mean, zero flow in this tank anyway. I don't even think I would need the filter, to be honest with it. This tank has been a few different scapes, but there's just something about it that I really, really like. It just has a really great flow. I love the heavy, junky wood of it. I did use a lot more rock in this one than I typically use in my other scapes, and probably more plants too. Again, the leaf litter, everything, all my tanks are kind of that South East Asian inspired scapes. I've got some dwarf lilies grown in the back that seem to be doing really well, and then I just got 6 chocolate gouramis that went in there last night, so hopefully they adjust well and I get to see them here pretty soon. But yeah, it basically just has a bunch of anubias and some dwarf Java fern and a few little crypts here and there tucked in. So it's been a really happy, like, this is probably my most undemanding tank. It's so stable. Like the lighting, every now and then I think, oh, I need to change the lighting, but it's just perfect right now. There's no algae, there's no issues with it. I'm almost afraid to change anything because it's really doing well. It's just one of those things, if it's, you know, just kind of leave things be because they're working. People ask me about when I explain this, because I don't like the flow in the tank for the leaf litter, for the whole Asian biotope setup, for the fish that I have. They don't want any flow, so I get these intake sponges, the pre-filter sponges, and put them over the output, and it just stifles the flow. So this little cube, sometimes the cubes can be a little bit of a challenging shape to scape, but I found this really branchy, there's this really light colored branchy spider wood, but you know, of course after a while it turns dark just like any other wood. So when you see really light colored spider wood somewhere, just know that it won't stay light, it will eventually be dark too. And it just reminded me of this like branchy, you know, collection of twigs that you would find somewhere in a creek. So I bought some big pieces and tucked them in, and I just envision like a creek or like a marginal ditch somewhere where something would just get caught up, and then all the leaves get caught up in those twigs, and then you might have some, you know, plants or little ferns that start growing in those like twigs. And so I just try to recreate that, and this is kind of what came out of it. And this especially, I was trying to picture like a little Asian ditch somewhere, like on the side of the road, and leaf litter, seed pods, licorice gouramis are in there. We've got the neon blue rasboras and some another wild type gourami, and I think it works really well. Really enjoy it. I was curious to see how long, especially those fine twigs of that spiderwood, but so far it's holding up really well. It's been going actually for probably 2 years now. So, and this is my latest project, my first paludarium project I worked on. So, of course, again, it's blackwater, and I was picturing like the creek again and what it would look like. Initially, I was going for like a like Florida Everglade kind of area. Was trying to use some native plants, which there is some native plants. After fish tour today, I think I'm changing directions and kind of going for a wild betta setup. Still keeping it a paludarium. I'm planning on having all growth back here. Maybe some things kind of spilling over the wood, some mosses, and then keeping the front open for the fish to kind of go in and out. There's all this tunnel underneath. Sure. And if anybody wants to see any of my tanks, I'll check out the pictures I posted on my Instagram. It's just Mimi Loves Germany on Instagram.